Everyone, welcome. So today it's about how did I get off Instagram for good after years of being on. So first, I'm going to jump right into it. First, I remember going on and when I started realizing that it was affecting me, that I was like on for hours and other people were realizing it too. It was like, oh my God, I was just like, you're on Instagram again. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize like, it was just like an automatic thing. It says like, how did I just closed the app and then I just picked up my phone and you're right into it and you're just scrolling. And so that was like a big shock, and then realizing how much it was like affecting my daily life. And then it was like, oh, I'm on for hours. Like, my God, I just thought I was on for like 5 minutes, but then like I look up and it's been like 45 minutes. And so then realizing that it ended up being like a bit of like a high school situation almost, where like you'd be like, oh, this person's not liking any of your stuff, or they comment on everyone else's and not yours. And it just like started not to feel good at all. I don't think it felt good for a while, but when I started realizing all these other things, then I was like, this is not good. And then so being conscious of like what was happening, I started realizing like, oh my God, as you're scrolling, you're constantly maybe even like judging people. You're like, this is like before everyone like, or probably studies were out like about comparing. It was like, I was like, well, we're also judging every time we go. So I'm like, I don't want to strengthen that in any way. Like, I don't want to be judging others, because when I would feel like hear or notice these thoughts come up, like I knew it wasn't me, because that's not what I do anyways. I like to lift and motivate people. But it was like, oh my God, I just like noticed those thoughts creep in because it was so not me. I was able to notice it. And so I was like, okay, this is not good. And so then I started being conscious when I would try to go on Instagram, following like people that I, you know, knew that like were good for me. And I think back then was like there was an option. Yeah, there was an option to like to make someone's account. I would think it was a bit later to make other people's account not show up as much or something. The ones that I knew that like, okay, it'd be such a drama if I deleted them, but then like I wasn't like I was afraid to delete at that point. But then I realized that okay, well, if I don't see their stuff, because I know that every time their stuff comes up, there was like a bit of a trigger because I knew that, they felt some way about me or whatever it was. It just felt like a lot of drama. So then I started trying to follow a lot more positive like quotes and memes and stuff like that, and inspirational stuff. And so that was like really great, because every time I would go on, I would see these inspirational quotes and stuff, and then I would come off. And so that was really great. And then I started realizing that like there was like this dark humor side that was like coming out more so. And it's because I was following like certain accounts that were like really big and famous, but they were more like they were on the darker side. Like, and so it was like, okay, well, this is not very positive, and I feel like it's affecting me because I'm laughing with it or and at it. And so I deleted those accounts. Um, and then so then there was like it was like full of like positive things on my feed. And then I realized like, okay, well, now I'm coming on and I'm constantly just getting used to like these positive quotes. And then you get used to it after a while, right? Because it's like, again, it's like it's more external, but it was good for the time being, because I think I needed it. That like that build up, that motivation and stuff like that, especially like as an entrepreneur, but just as a human too. And then um and then so yeah, so then I started telling myself before I'd go on the app. So like I started becoming more conscious, like, okay, I'm going on like Instagram. And then I would tell myself, okay, before I go on Instagram, I'm only going on to check this because my friend told me to go like check out this page and see if I like this person's like hairdo or updo and makeup tutorial, whatever. and then they would send me the account, and then so I'd have to tell myself before I'd open it. So then when friends starts like, and me too, I would send a lot of stuff when I would be on, be like, oh, I think they would like this, or I think they would like that. Then I stopped doing that, because then I was just like, then I'm getting people to stay on Instagram. So then when friends were doing it, I was just like, hey, I'm not really going on. I had to start telling them, kind of like people would say it's like that annoying friend that says they don't go on social media, but it's just like, well, you kind of have to be sometimes, because you need that for people to know that, and you're not being annoying. Maybe other people are perceiving it as that, but like you need people to know that like, hey, I need, like I don't, like try not to send me or try not to send any Instagram stuff because I don't want to go on. You're kind of like asking for help in a way. And then, yeah, so then telling myself before I go on that like, hey, I'm going on to this or that. And it's like, that wasn't always working, but it was for a good amount of the time. But sometimes you would just go on because it just became a habit, because then you're just, oh, I'm just going to scroll. Oh, just a few more. Oh, just a little more. And then, but the problem was like, there's all these thoughts that are coming through as you're like looking at people's pages, you're comparing, you're contrasting, but you're judging, you're saying all these things in your head, but like, it's just like, these aren't the habits that you want to strengthen usually, but going on. But what did change was going on, and the people that like triggered me and stuff at that point, then I had deleted as well. Or like people that like purposely weren't, putting anything on my page, but like we're looking at it. So anyways, I deleted those. And then I would go on and be like, okay, I'm only going to like think the thoughts that I would say to them usually, which is like really good, positive things, if I'd go on. So that was great. But then I was like, I don't want to be stuck on social media, and not notice that I like something has controlled me. Like I never liked anything that made me addictive. So anything that like felt like that, which the wild thing about like a lot of addiction things, it's like there's so many excuses, so many things that like it makes it seem like, oh, it's not an addiction. You're just going on. You're just a few scrolls. It's not an addiction. Everyone's doing that. And so it kind of puts it in like a bow and says like, oh, look, it's a pretty flower, where it's like might not be. So that's how I started viewing it. I was just like, okay, well, this seems like more of an addiction because it's affecting like my everyday and stuff. So I don't want to take part in it. And then so when I started really shifting a lot more off of social media was when I started putting it into another folder. So I had like folders for everything that I did. And then I started to put it in like the last page of the folder, like which had a lot of stuff or something that didn't make sense. It's like, oh, why would this app be in that folder? So I started doing that. And then obviously after a while, you could, you go on once in a while, and then you get pretty used to it being there too. So then I was like, okay, this worked for like, let's say a few months, but it's not working right now. So then I started logging out. I needed to create another obstacle. So that was an obstacle, putting it in another folder, and then not letting your thumb know where it is, and then logging out, because that could be like seemed as like annoying. It's just like, oh, I have to log out, log back in every time, and then making sure it doesn't like remember your password is always a good one. You have to put it in every time. And so adding these little things. And then, so that was a big shift, because then I stopped going on for like a few days. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I'd go back on, and then I'd be like, oh, everything's kind of like the same. It's as if I didn't leave. And it wasn't like, oh, everything's like waiting for you and you have to scroll through it type of thing. It was more so the feeling of like, people were posting still similar things. It's like, of course, things could have happened in their life, but like overall, very similar things. And so I was just like, oh, well, okay, well, for a few days, it was as if like there was always like this fear of missing out or something. I was missing out on the details of the world, I guess, like the older generation, like reading the newspaper, maybe, I'm not sure. So doing that, the logging out, and then not going on for a few days. So then I was like, hey, let me see how it feels for a week. So I would like try to purposely not go on for like 7, 8 days. And then that was like, oh, it's still the same. And then I started going off of it for like a couple weeks. And then I was like feeling so good about it because it was like, it wasn't a normal thing to do at all. So it was like a good feat for me to have reached. And for me, it was also always in the back of my head, like, I need to practice what I preach in everything I do. And social media is something that I know like my clients will have problems with because it's something that I see like everyone like getting stuck on. And so I wanted to be able to do this so that I could help them through it whenever they need it, or in the future other people need it. So then it went to the next step, another obstacle. What is that? Deleting the app. Deleting the app was also a game changer, because if you really, really, really wanted to see something that your friend sent you or whatnot, it was like, you better like your friend better say that it's going to be so important, or it's like, oh, they want you to really like or comment something that they posted and stuff. Like back then it was like a big deal to do that. So, or I thought it was a big deal to do that. And then, so deleting the app. And then another step after that, because then I would get off for a few months, was only going on the browser on the laptop. That was the only time I was allowed to go on. So there was no app, no nothing. I would just be going on the website, logging in. It was not a good experience. Like that's not something that they worked on. It looked like back like then. It was only a few years ago. So it was something like they for sure wanted you to be on the app. So it was great because it was like, made you see it differently. The experience wasn't there where it was like making you want to stay on. So that was fantastic. And then before I knew it, it was like 6 months I wasn't on. And then I deactivated it a couple times, if not 3. But then I realized, I think after the first or second time, that I was like, oh, every time I come back on and I reactivate my account, all the tags that I've had of any friendships, past friendships, everything, it's like reactivating as if I'm like starting a new conversation with them, and them being notified that like, oh, I tagged them in a picture, even though it was from a while ago. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to have that interaction constantly. So then that was like a good obstacle that was created on its own, that I was like, okay, perfect. Like another reason I don't want to go on as well. But not being on for like the 3 months, 6 months, and realizing like I didn't miss much. The only time before I finally deleted my account was when during COVID, I think I hadn't been on for like a long time, at least a year or something. And then I went back on, and a lot of people were like pregnant or married and stuff like that. And a year or two into COVID. And so I was just like, oh, wow. Like this is like where I like so many things have happened. And I was like, but I saw it differently, because it was just like, well, I didn't keep in touch with these friends, and these are like old friendships. So not supposed to know these types of details anyways. Wish them well and everything, but it was like wild to see that where people were moving to other places. And so it was like cool to see. I was just like, wow, it's like a different world. But it was keeping me in a different world that I didn't feel like I was a part of anymore. But so that was great. And so am I not affected by any social media anymore? No, that's not true. So even though that was years ago, I started going on TikTok, like a year and a bit maybe before it became like known and popular. And because it was before COVID. And then during COVID, I believe it got popular. So then it was fine. But then as the algorithm, I felt like just in the past 2 years, it's gotten even better. And then I started pressing like on a lot more videos. It started realizing like what I like or dislike. Whereas before I used to be a bit more conscious on, but even though it would pick up like what you stayed and viewed on as well, But I used to be conscious a bit more of like, oh, I don't want to press like on it because like I don't want it to know what I like and stuff as well. But then, sometimes I'd be like, oh no, I want this person to be like supported and stuff like that, because I was posting videos and I was like, oh, it'd be nice like if people supported my videos if they saw it instead of skipping it or not liking it, and then so. Well, skipping it is fine if that's not the type of video they want. so, so yeah, in the past couple years, I realized like, oh wait, like I'm like getting stuck on TikTok. So then I had to create that obstacle like right away when I realized it. Like after like 2-3 times, I think, and then so I created an obstacle, put it in another folder. So I've like moved it around folders here and there if I realize that it's like if I'm going back on, because sometimes I was going on to get like to find sounds that were like more viral so I could create videos using those sounds. So like I was on for a little bit, and so then I would get like used to it. And then in the recent year, I realized that when I was going on, and if I was like, for whatever reason, happened to go on it at nighttime, or if I went in and then I saw a notification and then I went to the regular page and it was something obviously that it knew that I would like, and then I would watch, and then I scrolled up, and then before you know it, you're scrolling, and then before bedtime, then it was like, oh my God, like your sleep, it's as if like you're like what I felt like it was as if like my brain is kind of like on and not in like a deep sleep, but even though you're in a bit of a sleep, it was it felt weird. It felt like in the next morning like you're not getting a good night's rest at all. So that has happened several times that I was just like, okay, I have to be mindful. Now, like even more so, so that I don't just like go on and start scrolling. So now I have to like prep myself again and say like, okay, well, I'm going on to like post a video. I'm going on to like just type in this because I'm also using it a little bit as a search engine, like to find out what's happening within something. Whereas like Google has not been able to keep up with some of that. And so telling myself that, okay, I'm going on just for the search engine and whatnot. So I might need to log out of it, especially if I'm not posting for a while. And yeah, and maybe use the browser version instead, because I remember that wasn't that great either. But see, like just being mindful of the fact that like there are things in your life, and then having the tools to be able to know that like, okay, what should I do because I'm noticing this. So it wasn't so much about like being hard on myself. It's just like, okay, since I've been there before, it's just like, well, I know what I could do to maneuver through this, and to make sure that it doesn't affect me, and I'm using it as a tool. And then it's been making me rethink like, should I be posting on TikTok? Because at first it was like, it was great. There was a lot of good information on there, but then now like, as the videos, especially if they're shorter and you're constantly scrolling and you're not able to get off. Whereas before I was able to like get off within a few minutes. Whereas now it's just like I was like, oh, scrolling more. Like it's changed. The app has changed, or the videos are shorter and longer, but a lot more shorter ones. So my attention span, I guess, like sometimes when I'm watching it, it's like it's shorter in that time. So, or however that works. So, so they're doing something to keep you on the app, whereas before that wasn't an issue, and that's why I didn't mind posting my like content on there. But just like Instagram, like I never wanted to post stuff on Instagram because I think I started with like 1 or 2 quotes on my personal page, and after that I was like, I just don't feel right. Like it was as if like I was not allowing myself, I thought, to grow, but then I was like, it just didn't align with my values, because I felt like Instagram was like a place where I knew it was addictive. I knew it wasn't good for people. It didn't matter if there's no research there at the moment that proved that like how bad it was for you. It was that I knew that it was affecting people's brains. And so I couldn't know like in good consciousness to go put content there knowing that people would get stuck. But then I would never think that of other people's, because there's a lot of amazing people that post on Instagram, but their views of it is different. And I was like, oh, I wish I could have like and believe what they believe, but I just like couldn't come to terms with it, so I didn't. But I know like a really good view on it is that like, well, you're there where people need you and you could help them through it and help them out of it. But I just felt like I would get stuck on Instagram, and so I just didn't want to. And I liked the creativity and freedom that I felt like I had on TikTok. Whereas Instagram, I think, because I posted a couple times just on my personal page with friends and stuff, it was too vulnerable for me. And then, and I didn't want people to find me on Instagram. Whereas like TikTok, a lot of people I knew didn't have it. Most people I knew didn't have it for a long time. So it felt like creative and a good outlet, and it didn't feel like, oh, I'm able to get off every time, which I know is not always the case for everyone in the beginning. But then now it's like I realized, well, I'm now on longer than I wanted to be. So anyways, so just the whole idea is that like knowing that, okay, if it is affecting you, what can I do about it? Because your brain will try to come up with all these excuses and stuff. It's like, oh, well, it's not an addiction. Oh, it's fine. Oh, it's just this time. Or it's just like, okay, what could I do about it so that it doesn't affect me every day, and that like it's a tool that I'm using and it's not using me. So the tools that I mentioned are applicable to like, I believe like most social medias, and especially like if you're seeing like a social media that like other people might not be like on constantly, or it's not making them feel a certain way, but maybe for you it is. Trying to figure out like, why is it making you feel that way? Is it keeping you on longer than you wanted? Is it like creating, like is it bringing in thoughts that you wouldn't necessarily have, or you would have, and it's making them even like stronger? Because sometimes it is normal for like like the brain to compare and contrast, to want to like grow and evolve and compete, right? That's what like the old billionaire-old brain wants to do. But then it's like, how do I but I want to strengthen the good stuff. I want to strengthen like the positive aspects of the mind. So how could I do that when I go on? Do I need to tell myself something before I go on? Do I need to look at like a piece of paper before I go on? So there's different types of tools that you could create for yourself. And you could use any of the ones that I've mentioned as well, which like are very helpful. So yeah, so I hope that helps, and I will see you all later. Bye.